All right. Good evening, everyone. I am Sarah Whiteside and the founder of Team Balance. We are here for our first team meeting of the year. It is January 8th, 2017, and we are ready to just have we're ready to roll. It is going to be one heck of a year for this team and for everybody on here and everybody listening to this call at a future date and time. And I am just so excited to, share some things with you and get things rolling. Gonna mute everybody else for now so we don't get any background noise. Okay. And I've got a spinning wheel. Hopefully things are working. Okay. All right. Oh, mute Amanda. And mute Marianne. Okay. All right. So what I want to talk to you about, I put up a few things in, I put up a little quote on the team page this morning about, let me read it. Let me just pull it up and read it so I don't get lost. And it actually came from my reading this morning that I was doing. I'm reading Daring Greatly. Actually, I'm always reading like 6 books at one time, but it always drove my mom crazy when I was a kid. She's like, how do you know what's going on in 4 different books? And I don't know. So I'm still that way. So think on this in preparation for our team call. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It is the source of hope, empathy, accountability, and authenticity. If we want greater clarity in our purpose, or deeper and more meaning spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. And I read that and just got goosebumps all over thinking about how frequently we are encouraged and taught to just be ourselves and to not try to focus on what other coaches are doing, and that the more you can be true to who you are, the more you will attract people who they learn who you actually are and will be attracted to that, because there is strictly a vulnerability that allows them to connect to something in your life, and they go, she gets me. She can kind of understand a little bit about what's going on in my head when it comes to X, Y, or Z situation. And it's not going to be that's why coaching works well for so many different kinds of people, is because there are people out there with all sorts of needs, and I can't meet those needs for everybody. And, Martha can't meet the needs for the same people that I might be able to. And Tracy, she will be able to connect with a whole different set of people. And until you start showing your differences as a coach on social media, it will be pretty difficult for people to connect to you as an individual versus having this just, oh, well, she's a Beachbody coach, and I think I kind of know what they do, and I guess she might be able to help me with this if that was something I was really interested in. But when you start to just let go of what people might think about what you're posting, or what people might think, I would have, even up in 6 months ago, would rather have dug a hole in the sand than to share as much as I have about my finances on social media or personal chats. I'm not releasing major numbers publicly, but I've started just saying hey, this has been our situation. We had 5 cars in the driveway last year, and I had to pay $1,000 in taxes on all of them. And just, talking about stuff that other people go through too, and it just doesn't get talked about. So, I see it every October, when every October comes around, and, Amanda and a lot of the moms that she is connected with are from my rainbow baby group, you know, from moms who have lost a pregnancy or lost an infant and, you know, are searching for that connection. And I feel like even sometimes there are people who are way more willing to speak about, you know, prenatal and infant loss these days than they are even willing to speak about their finances. And it is just part of it. There's stuff that we need to talk about, and people need to find that connection. And because we are spread so thin in our daily lives, not just us, but everybody out there, we are expected to be in 20 places in one day, and we just don't have the chance to make that connection with people that are, you know, we're not sitting around a table anymore, making bread or shucking corn, or, you know, when you think about what life was like 150 years ago, and they lived in these tiny little villages, and everybody went to the same church, and everybody went to the same school, and everybody, you know, it was just such a, you know, and they had, you know, families lived in the same home together and not across the country. You know, you guys are more my family than my cousins, because I don't see them. Like, I mean, yes, I kind of connect with a little bit of some of them on social media, but if we all lived in the same neighborhood, that would be a whole different story. And so the way I look at social media now is that you guys are my neighbors. I live on a road where I don't even have neighbors really. Like, there's a house in front of us and they've got kids who are in high school and college, and, you know, her brother, who's old and you can't really hold a conversation with him, lives next door. But that's certainly not the neighborhood I even grew up in, where there were 5 houses within a quarter-mile distance of each other, and we were all the same age, and we were all together all the time, and our parents, you know, had parties together and everything. So this becomes our new network of support. So if we really want to support people, we have to dig deep. Because if all we do is say, oh, hey, your outfit looks so cute, when we see the mom dropping off at school, there's no connection there. So we need to, and people just, I think they've kind of lost they've lost how to make those connections too, how to sit down and kind of get in deep with a conversation with somebody. And because they're used to being on their phones now, it does make it, they're comfortable on their phones. So I think they are more willing to open up and be a little bit more vulnerable, even on their phones through Messenger, than they are sitting down with you in person, right? So some of the things that you may have said to somebody through Messenger, you may have been terrified to tell them that face to face. So it allows us to actually build a really deep connection, maybe even closer than we would be able to do in person. So I'm going to flip to my little, if you have a piece of paper, that's perfect. I'm gonna flip my computer around here, I think, and be able to show you. I've got my laptop and my old computer doing the recording. And this is actually, I did this, this slide and presentation for my athletic training conference presentation that I was supposed to do this weekend, that I don't know if I'll be doing at some point in February or not. Let's see. Okay, let me turn my laptop around here without dropping it. All right, so this is what your little, okay, so self-assessment. All right, and it's a pie with 10 pieces, and each piece of the pie has an area of life. So it's called, I've titled it, the Google document, I think says Wheel of Life or something like that, assessment. So the concept is from Zig Ziglar. And he has then been, you know, a lot of people, self-development people, have recreated it in some way, shape, or form. Mine that I am using is really the pieces of the pie come more from Chalene Johnson's 30-day push. And so that's where Martha and I did it. I didn't realize until this week that Chalene's 30-day push is no longer available. So sad, but her recording is up. So if you don't, you know, if you want a little bit more of an energetic way of listening to some of the same topics, I would suggest going back and stalking her page, because she is way more entertaining than I am to listen to talk about, you know, these things. So with the reason why I want to talk about all these areas of life that we're going to self-assess is because, you know, for our year, you're going to you need to have things that you want to work on specifically. So, you know, it kind of goes back to Megan's goal setting call. And sometimes when I think about goal setting, I would always go, I just don't even know like where to start. So I feel like the self-assessment is a really great place to start, because, and I like the wheel because it just gives me such a visual instead of just seeing numbers. So we're going to rate our areas 1 to 10. And I am going to, okay. The rating system is set up this way. The things that you are very, very unhappy with in your life, rated very, let me go back and go over the categories. The categories are physical health, mental well-being, environment, and I'll give these to you again: hobbies, romance, friends and family, financial, purpose and career, personal growth, and spirituality. Okay, so we're going to rate those all 0 to 10, and then you're going to go back into the different wheel spokes on the wheel and color in like that, you know, number. And Chalene didn't do this wheel. You know, I think, did Chalene do the wheel, Martha? Yes, no. So the wheel, the visual of the wheel actually comes from Hal Elrod. So his book, The Miracle Morning, which is a great book. And I did talk briefly in our little Power Hour push group about, you know, what type of personal development you're focusing on. I talked about Miracle Morning. I talked about Daring Greatly a little bit. So Hal Elrod had this wheel, and I was like, ooh, I really like how that, you know, it just gives you a visual of like how well you feel like your different areas of your life literally stack up. So when you rate something very low, this means that success in this area very rarely occurs. This area may be completely neglected or seemingly met with failure most of the time for whatever reason. In terms of like rating something very low, I remember when I first did this, I rated my finances a 2. Okay. Compared to a lot of people, we make plenty of money, but I felt, and this is really how you feel in how you do in these areas, I felt like such a failure. And whether or not it's me whatever I'm comparing myself to, it's how I feel about it. It's not how anybody else feels about it. It's not how my husband feels about, you know, Brian might rate it as a 5. But for me, it was a 2. And, you know, so low is a 2. Success in this area rarely occurs. The area is neglected or met with failure often, well below average. And I completely neglected my finances. I just kind of let it lay where it was, and figured it out when we had a crisis thing. Medium low, 3 to 4. Success in this area occurs occasionally, but not most of the time. This area is probably neglected or met with failure regularly, below average. Medium, meaning you're sometimes neglecting, sometimes focusing on this area, and met with a mixture of failure and success. So really feeling like I would stack up completely average across the board in terms of how I do in this area and how I feel about how I'm doing in it. Going on, very high is going to be 10. You know, you're 10. Success in this area occurs most of the time, if not always. Area very regularly focused upon, very rarely neglected or met with failure. Excellent. Okay. Now, I'm not a person who's ever really going to rate myself with a 10. If you like it's just personal, but I probably would never rate myself as a 10 because I always feel like there's always room for improvement. But you certainly could. There could be areas in your life that you are 100% happy with right now. And this is something that Shalene actually suggests going back and rating yourself every 30 days. Now, I certainly haven't done it every 30 days. I should probably do it quarterly, and that maybe, you know, I'm also reading the 12-week year, and so that may be something that I put this at the end of each quarter and rate myself again. You know, and so it's just this, you know, sliding scale, how you feel, but give yourself a number in each of these areas. So we're going to go back and talk about just a little bit about some of the areas. For me, I almost would, so area number 1, physical health. Now, this is something that a lot of us, we should be pretty well on top of in this area. However, if your goal is to hit your workout on every single day of the calendar on a 30-day calendar, and you're not, and you're meeting it only 20 out of those 30 days, well, what 2 out of 3 is only 66%. So you could either rate yourself really with how you're actually doing as a 6, or, you know, if you feel like you're doing a little better, you might rate a little bit higher if you're doing, you know, if you're meeting your step counts on the days when you're not getting your workout in, or, you know, I would almost split physical well-being into 2 subcategories. One being, am I getting my workouts in? And number 2, there are a few factors, but the other would be nutrition. You know, how well am I focusing on my nutrition? You know, am I on it 50% of the time? Am I on it 80% of the time? And then the third thing that I would factor in there is, how is my health in general? Is my health, you know, when I go to the doctor, do I walk in the majority of the time for a physical and they go, your blood numbers are great, your weight is great, your blood pressure is great, you know, and they don't really have anything to complain about. They wish everybody who walked in the doctor's office, you know, had a chart that looked like mine. I might give myself a 10 on that right now, other than the fact that I was sick last month once. But, you know, so give yourself, kind of average out those 3 categories for your physical health. All right. The next section is mental well-being. And Shalene would include, you know, are you actively seeking some sort of counseling? Not that everybody has to be in counseling all the time, but if there's something that you're struggling with that you might be able to work through a little bit better, is that something that you have either thought about seeking counseling for? If it's something that you've thought about getting counseling for, are you actually doing it, or is it something that you're still putting off? So, you know, mental well-being could also include, are you being mindful? Are you really taking some time to do a 5-minute meditation every day? Okay. Now that's something that I really love to do on a daily basis. And you know, sometimes I'm on it, sometimes I'm not. It's definitely not a habit. So go ahead and write down a number 0 to 10 for your physical health right now and for your mental well-being.
Six huge.
All right. The next section is environment. Environment is, for me, can also be split into 2 categories because I have work environment and I have home environment. If, you know, your home is your work environment, that's easy. You only have one place to rate, but this would include things like, do you feel like this place is actually big enough for what you need it for? Is your housing actually adequate for your family? Is your work environment a positive environment? And, you know, even given the fact that Marianne and Becky and I all work in the exact same building, we might give that 3 completely different ratings. You know, I get to stay in my little bubble down on my one side of the building and, you know, don't have to interact with a whole lot of what else is going on, you know, positive or negative. So that could, you know, bring my score up or down compared to them. So if you want to give your environment, and you know, an A and a B rating, you know, one for work and one for home, that would be fine too. The next, go ahead and rate your work environment. Go ahead and write down that number.
Question about work environment. Are you talking about our environment? Are you talking about physical environment, or just like how you feel in your environment, or what?
All of the above.
Okay.
So yeah, if you feel like the physical environment of your workspace limits what you can do and that brings you down, then that would bring the rating down as well. Hey, Dawn, how are you doing? We are working on a little bit of like a self-assessment rating of 10 different areas of life. So you may want to grab a little sheet of paper, and we're just, we're rating ourselves 0 to 10 in these different areas. So we just finished up number 3. And I would also include that, you know, if you end up in a place every, 5 days of the week that you never want to be, that would mean that your rating should go pretty low. All right, moving on from environment to hobbies. So hobbies, I feel like, can be classified in a few different ways, because initially I would have rated this as a hobby, and this would be, great as, and I probably still do put this in the hobby category for me, just because since I spend so much of my outside of work time focusing on this, it really has replaced any other hobbies that I might pick up, right? Like, but if I leave work and this becomes work primarily, then I can pick up potentially the hobbies that I would love to have back in my life, like taking dance classes, possibly teaching group fitness, other things like that. So I want to, and just out of curiosity, I'm going to unmute everybody, and I'll call on you real quick so we don't have everybody jumping in at the same time. I want to hear about what your hobbies were before, either before kids or before Beachbody. So Martha, go ahead. Give me a hobby or two.
Drinking and reality TV.
All right, Mary, give me yours.
Sewing.
Okay. Amanda?
Maybe cooking? I don't know. I don't really have a lot of hobbies.
How about before the kids?
I mean, I definitely, something I enjoy doing is cooking and creating recipes and stuff like that.
That's great. Tracy, hobbies.
Hobbies. I've had kids my whole adult life, so I'm like, that's so funny. I would say school.
Okay.
Yeah, school.
All right, Crystal, I see you. I see your name. I don't see your face, but
Reading, I guess.
Mainly sports, softball, playing, attending, coaching. That's BK before Kendall.
yeah, absolutely. Becky, how about you?
Photography and hiking and kind of outdoorsy sort of stuff.
Awesome.
I mean, coaching has always been one, but
Right.
soccer and stuff.
Dawn?
Before kids would have been reading. I did a lot of just reading books, and gosh, that was a long time ago. I don't know. And then here recently it's been photography, which is actually a business now, and it's kind of taken off kind of crazy, busier than I anticipated.
Awesome. That's great. Cool. All right. I'm going to mute everybody back, and I'm watching my time tick down very quickly here, so I'm going to try and plow through some of the rest of these. Okay, so go ahead and rate yourself on hobbies. If you are 100% satisfied with Beachbody being your primary hobby and it keeps you satisfied, then go ahead and give yourself a 10 if you feel like it. I'm rating mine as an 8 because I really want to get back to those dance classes. So after hobbies, we go on to romance. Now, whether you call it romance or relationship, or it really is just your fulfillment with your personal connection to kind of another close person. And I love the way Shalene put this, because she said, if you just got out of a really shitty romance and that makes it a 10, then you celebrate it and you make it a 10, because it might change in 6 months and that's okay. And it's not with how your spouse or your boyfriend or fiance feels about the relationship, it's how you feel about the relationship right now. So go ahead and rate your relationship status. It's basically a satisfaction level. Okay, it's not like rating how good it is compared to somebody else's relationship. It's just how satisfied you are with where your relationship is at right now. And the next one is friends and family. And she mentioned this one as a, this is the friends and family that you actually care about. It isn't the friends and family that like you wouldn't care if you never saw them again, or the ones that you haven't seen in 5 years, or the ones that you only see at weddings and funerals. These are friends and family, you know, friends being maybe those kind of 5 closest people to you. And, you know, maybe taking a few minutes to say, who would those 5 people be? You know, right now, who are my 5 closest friends? And if my life is going to look like the average of theirs, as you know, over the next few years, am I happy with that? Do I want my life to look like the average of what those 5 people are in terms of how passionate they are about what they do, how much money they make, how satisfied they are in their relationships, how much personal development they do, how much, you know, do they have similar, and they probably do have similar hobbies, because if they're not, you know, if they're not direct family, then typically our, you know, our closest friends do typically are the people that we are, you know, doing things with. Brian, can you take your conversation out a little bit? Can you hear him? A little bit, yeah, they can hear you.
Gotta go.
So I moved my computer back out into the kitchen because I can't even get in my office right now. So hopefully this will go back again later. So rate your friends and family satisfaction level. Do you get to see them? Are you happy when you see them? Do you enjoy that time that you spend together? So, you know, if it was getting together with family over the holidays and that was like super high on the stress level, or were you able to just relax and enjoy that time with them? Okay, next one is financial. And like I said before, I rated my finances 2 years ago as a 2. Right now, I would rate it as, even though it's not where I want it to be, just the fact that I feel like I'm having more success with it, and I feel like I'm actually in control of what's going on now, I give it like a 6 or a 7. Okay, I know I've got a long way to go, but that is a stinking big jump, and it took a lot of focus. So that is why, you know, we need to kind of assess where we're at. Hey, Carrie. And so when I think about my finances, I was a 2 years ago, and being a 6 right now, I think is pretty darn good. Carrie, we're doing a self-assessment. You'll catch up and then probably have to go back to the beginning later, and I'll post this in the team page. Okay, so our next part of the pie, number 7, is purpose and career. Are you on track? Oh shoot, I'm down to 10 minutes. Are you on track with where you want to be in purpose and career? And this one is my hot button, okay? This is what I need to keep going back to. Between this and finances, it took me getting into Beachbody to realize that I had no purpose with my career anymore 3 years ago. It was gone. There was no more 5-year plan. There was no 2-year plan. It was like I was there and I didn't know what was going to happen with life next. And it was just there. No goals, no purpose, no passion, nothing. So 3 years ago, purpose and career, I might have been a 2. If you had asked me then, I probably would have rated it higher. I was working in my chosen career field. I had a decent salary for what I was doing, but I didn't even realize I had lost my purpose and passion. So, but where are you now with that? Like, are you on track? Do you feel like you're on fire when you are working in your career, when you are pursuing your Beachbody business or otherwise? Brian, can you put him on a headphone, please? Sorry.
How do you hear him?
I can hear him. They can too, all the way through my microphone. Okay, so purpose and career. So where are you on that now? You feel like you are 100% headed in the correct direction. You know, when snowstorm rolls in, cancels my athletic training meeting, I can go to DC and spend 12 hours with some of my besties yesterday. Like, that is, the universe has my back and things are good, and I know that I am on the right path. Like, I don't control the weather, but there's a reason that there was snow in Williamsburg and not DC yesterday. So, all right. Number 9 is personal growth. I would consider this personal development, whether it's business personal development, you know, it could be more mental well-being personal development. Is it, you know, I've been reading a lot of financial personal development, you know, it could be, there are a lot of different areas that we talk about personal development in. Are you going to conferences? Are you jumping on team calls? Are you, you know, if you have a recertification coming up, like I have to, seriously, like I have to decide whether I'm going to renew my teacher license or not. Ugh. Just my response to that probably tells me that I just don't even need to waste my time and money with it. But I don't want to have that regret if I go, I need this for something. I don't know. But professional development, personal development, how are you doing in that area? Are you getting into it on a daily basis? You know, I would say if you're not doing any kind of personal development, you know, 3 or 4 days a week, then you got to rate it below a 5 because you're not working on yourself half of the week. If you're getting into it every single day, even if it's only 10 minutes, then rate it higher than a 7. Okay. And I love when there are several different people that I've heard talk about it in different, you know, shapes over the past few months, is that, you know, people will spend more time researching a new car or a new computer or a new TV or whatever else that they're going to buy and bring into their life than they do thinking about what they're going to be doing with their life in 6 months or a year or 5 years, and digging into personal development and figuring out, like, how am I going to make me better versus the, you know, computer that I'm sitting working on every day. So stuff versus, you know, what is inside. Last one is spirituality. That can mean anything to, you know, if meditation is your thing and you do that on a regular basis and that is what keeps you centered and connected to the universe, or, you know, whatever higher power you believe in, do you feel like you are honoring that? If that is one of your top priorities, is the time that you're spending in that priority, does it match where you rate it? If you rate, you know, if your spiritual ladder really seriously is, you know, God, family, career, are you spending that time with God? Are you spending that time with your husband, with your kids, and then your career, focused on your career? If you are more of a, you know, whatever it is, if you like to go to church, if you don't like to go to church, but you still like to hear some sermons, if you just like to read about it, if you like to, you know, if you are more of just that mindful, spiritual, if you're crunchy granola yogi, we like them all. But anyway, rate how you feel about where you're at with that development in your life, because you can't deny it that we're, you know, nothing brings a crazy group of ladies like this together except kind of some other higher power, because that's just how it goes. So this is not a mistake. I don't believe in coincidences. It's just God that has a very funny sense of humor sometimes. So those are our 10 areas. You should have a number 0 to 10 in all of those areas. Then you're going to go back to the event and print out my nice little self-assessment chart, or it's on a Google Doc. You should be able to save a copy. But I don't know if you'd be able to figure out a way to color it in unless you, like, I don't know, saved it into Canva, or I don't know how you do that. I spent probably 30 minutes just creating it, my pie, and putting all my circles in there. There's probably an easier way, but go fill that in. I just love the way it looks and just gives me a way. So if you came out of listening to Megan's team call going, I just am not really sure even what my goals should be, hopefully this self-assessment will give you something to now go back and reflect on those things and decide what some of those goals should be. And if you have a list of 10 goals, that's great. You're not going to get to all of them in the first 2 months of the year. Pick 2 or 3 that you're going to work on. And, you know, from those goals, you need to, if you can't figure out what the whole, either, you know, whether you call it reverse engineering or, you know, figuring out steps that you need to list out to help achieve those goals, then that's where you need to plug into one of the team pages or, you know, an upline coach who, you know, can help you kind of figure out some of those pieces and parts to get you moving in the right direction. Because the best thing that I've been doing for myself this year is creating steps for myself each day that I can actually check off, instead of putting a big project or a big goal on my sheet in my book every day that says, check in with coaches. Like, that's not a step. I can't check in with all of my PS coaches in one day, but I could certainly put 2 or 3 names on the page. Same thing with inviting, same thing with, you know, reaching out and talking to new people. Our power hour is set up in steps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this out. I'm going to stop the recording, but if you want to come back in and you have questions, I'm going to go ahead and restart. You can use the same link, but I won't include the discussion on the recording. Okay? So, I'm just going to go ahead because it's going to cut me off. So I will close out. We'll call this a day. Thanks for coming on. And if you don't come back on, that's fine. I understand people have families. So enjoy. We've got a lot to talk about on the team page this week. We had just an absolute blast at Super Saturday. Got lots of information and are looking forward to passing that on to you guys. So see you in just a minute if you want to jump back on. Ooh, mouse. Bye-bye.